Now, one man who never smiles is Rory Hafford. Good morning, Rory.
That's because I hang around with you, Will.
Yeah, well, we're not face to face this week, so that's an improvement. Anyway.
I always carry a picture of you with me, so I know. I'm familiar with your expression.
I'm surprised because if you carried my picture, you'd recognise me on the street. You'd never say hello when I meet you.
Seek help. Seek help.
Rory is here as our counsellor, psychotherapist, author and musician. Which hat do you want to wear today?
And stand-up comedian. Or at this age, it's more like sit-down comedian.
Sarah from Portlaoise is our first caller. And she wants to stress Sarah is not her real name, just for fear of her partner actually listening to this. But her partner has been distant. She reckons he could be having an affair. He works late. He is often away overnight for work. The stories he tells her do not add up. She doesn't want to bring it up before Christmas, but she's struggling to carry on as if everything is perfectly normal. What do you advise?
We've touched on this a few times, Will, and the whole thing with affairs of the heart, rejection of the self. This is tough stuff. This is as hard as it gets. Having said that, so I don't want to undermine it in any way. Having been through it, remember, I don't want to undermine it. So what I'm looking at are the words that Sarah is using to describe what it is that she's feeling. So she feels that he is distant. Okay, that does not, in and of itself, equate with having an affair. She thinks there might be something going on. Again, no direct equation with that. It's just a thought that's happening. She could just as easily think something else. And the word affair is something that she herself pulled out. So she could, in essence, be worrying about something dreadfully. I'd say it's eating the woman alive, that is not happening and does not exist. So it's important to put that out first.
Yeah, you are, yes, that is a possibility. But usually people will have an antenna that picks up something is wrong. It may not necessarily be an affair, but he's maybe distant for some other reason.
No, I get that, Will. But an antennae in and of itself is not proof positive. It's not evidence based. It's not scientific in it. So my argument here is that we have a tendency to jump to the catastrophic before examining the other stuff. So we start from a very negative point. We start from the end point that we fear. Okay, and all I'm saying, based on the words that I have and the information that I have in front of me, that is not necessarily true. Now remember, what I'm trying to do is to help this woman. I'm not here to argue.
And you're right, and there is something in science called confirmation bias, where somebody have a theory and they seek the evidence to prove their theory.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bit like, do you know what I'd love to buy a red Ford Fiesta, and then you start seeing the feckin' things all over the place. Do you know what I mean? Because your antennae and your brain is focused on the red Ford Fiesta. So now you have a better chance of picking it out in a lineup.
Or in your case, a luxury BMW.
Well, it's actually a Mercedes, but I won't.
Excuse me.
You're excused. So the thing is, the confirmation bias is there based on what is swimming around in your head. That's fine. But again, on this little slot that we do, we are here to help rather than add to the hurt of people. So what I'm saying to her is that which she fears dreadfully may not be the case at all. That's number one. Okay. It's easy for the tortured brain to jump to dire conclusions with no real proof, because that's an ancient fear. Now, the Irish, God love us all, are great at that. You know, if we can see something in a positive light or a negative light, we'll start with the negative. And the thinking behind it is, well, if it comes to pass, we'll already be prepared to deal with it. The problem with that is any thought that you have is based on energy. So you're putting a negative energy out into the world, and it is an attractive force. Again, not an opinion, a fact. And if you put negative stuff out, better chance you'll pull negative stuff towards you. So to me, that's a kind of a damaging approach to take to something that you fear might happen by assuming that it's happened already. Here's the other thing. If she's putting it off until the new year, then, and this is difficult, she needs to try to put it out of her head altogether.
Yeah, but that is easier said than done. So
100%. But you understand where I'm coming from.
Yes, because can we maybe, I suppose, ask how that conversation, when it eventually comes up, how that should go? Because, yes, you're right, frame your thinking so that you're not always looking at the catastrophic, so that you're trying to objectively sift through the evidence. But if she sees that, there are inconsistencies in his story, if he's working late when he didn't work late before, how should she bring that up?
No, and you're spot on. And the catastrophizing stuff like this is for most people their go-to point, and it just wears you down and down and down. And particularly if you're putting off the doomsday clock conversation. So eventually, it's going to roll around before she sits down with this man. And remember, I've done this for 30 years, Will. So before she sits down with this man, I would come up not with a whole list of negative stuff, but I would equalize it. I would balance it slightly with what this man has brought to her life and what this man means to her. That's the first thing. So you're not running in with a whole load of a negative checklist. There's a balance there, first off. The second thing then is I would put it back to him. I wouldn't say, I have, and this is what I think, and this is what I feel, and this is what the evidence shows me. I would ask him. Don't accuse him. Tell him of your concerns. She knows this man probably better than anybody else in the world. So empower him with the gift to tell the truth. Now just stay with that for a second. Empower him with the gift to tell the truth. And again, in my years doing this, I have found that approach sometimes is the breakthrough or the breakdown that is needed from the person who is holding on to a secret.
Right, so give us the terminology. What does it sound like rather than accusation?
Well, if it were me, I'd sit down and say, now, obviously, I'm talking to a woman, Will, before you come in with one of your jokes, okay? So I sit down with this woman in front of me. You know I love you. You know we've shared everything in life. You know we've done this, that, and the other, okay? And I want
Rory.
us to continue.
Oh, Rory. Keep going.
Faulkner, you are the worst. You're the absolute worst. Anyway, so once you get to that point, then I would say, but is there anything that I should be worried about? That's the opener. That's the opener right there.
Good opener.
And if she knows this man as well as she does, as well as she should, as well as she must, that is the cue for him to start talking. Is there anything that I should know about? So there's no accusation. There's no finger pointing. There's no aggression. Because if you put out aggression to somebody who's desperately holding on to a secret, it's more likely you'll get aggression back. So that would be the thing. Now, the truth is not easy, Will. The truth is a terrible thing in many cases. But at least it's the truth. And once you have it, then you're in a position to move forward with decisions.
Yeah, you know where you stand at that point, and here she doesn't. By the way, Emily suggests hiring a private detective.
I don't know. I don't know.
I would rate.
You do that on the side.
Well, you could. Christmas gift. Get a voucher for a private detective.
I wouldn't be a big fan of it, I have to say. It's straight away. It dumps in a whole dollop of negative thinking.
Yeah, it's a bit like sifting through somebody's phone. There's no coming back from that once trust is broken.
No, not a chance. And I know people say, but it is for me. It's a gross invasion of somebody's privacy. And you and I have had that conversation before in relation to the phone. Somebody sifting through the phone. I mean, texts that you see, which you go, holy mother of God, they could mean something else completely. you know what I mean? It's you can't say this text means that thing specifically. So plus,
I don't know. I always found yours very explicit.
I can't apologise enough, but there you go. It's the relationship then we have. But anyway, at the end, and the final point for me is when you have all the ducks lined up, then you are empowered yourself by empowering him to make a very important decision. Okay? And again, over the years that I've done this, Will, I have found that people, even when the dreadful truth comes out, they still decide, based on all the stuff that's gone before, to stay together. And one final thing on this, you know that I've written a book on this, the Savage Silence book, and it's about all of this. And it's written in an easy enough way, and it's written in story form. And people who have read this book have written to me, have rung me, have turned up at my door, believe it or not, to thank me for the stuff that is in it. So if Sarah feels that this would benefit her, I can get the lovely Sinead to send her a copy of it.
Rory, stay there, because next on Midlands 103, guilt that unfortunately many great parents experience, and it's wanting a little bit of time to themselves. But should they feel guilt? Rory Hafford is here for Headaches and Heartaches, and this next one I think a lot of parents will relate to. So Lisa is a mum of 3 young children, and she's really struggling to balance being a parent and having time for herself. And she's asking, is it selfish to want a break?
What do you think is at the root of this? What's the one word that would float to the top of this conundrum?
Guilt.
Guilt. Yeah. Spot on. Guilt. Now, if you look at unpack it. What is guilt driven by? It's normally the response of others. Okay, so people will look at me and they'll tut and that will make me feel guilty. Okay, so what we have here is one of the classic cases of an outside locus of control. So you empower other people to make you feel one way or another about yourself. Okay, that's essentially guilt. And if you think about it, it's just a thought. So it's not real. It's not a real thing. Burnout.
And just on that, sometimes we are judged by our peers and we want to keep up with the Joneses. And maybe in this case, you know, what will the neighbours think? What will my sister think, etc. But when it comes to getting a break from your kids, the guilt can actually be directed from them, or at least in your mind they're saying, well, I'm going to miss you, why are you going away, etc. So that's the harder part, where it's the puppy dog eyes staring up at you as you leave, you know, at 9 a.m. to go away for a dirty weekend.
What is it with you with the dirty weekends and the
I haven't had one in a long time.
you and me both, sister. But here's another word for you to take on board. Burnout. How about that? How about burnout? There's a doozy for you. So if Lisa is at the point where she's actually writing into a radio station, wondering whether she should give herself a little bit of a break, she's at the latter end of it. So it I would class it now as being a kind of a serious thing. So guilt, burnout, for me, burnout actually tops the list, and it's an extremely dangerous thing, because if you don't listen to the signs from the body will take over. In many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases, the body will take over and it will shut you down itself. Okay? It's a little bit like stress. If you ignore the stressors and the signs and the pointers, the body will just go, okay, I'm just taking you out of the system for a while to give you an enforced rest. So let's do some solutions for this woman. First off, what I would say is, do not either allow other people to judge you or judge yourself. In this case, there's just what you do and there's just what you don't do. Is this a good mother? Of course she is. She's actually writing into a station with a conundrum. She didn't just drop everything and go. So she is a decent human being based on what we know about her. So we need her to have positive solutions. So here's a couple. Could she go on a break with the kids? Now just stay with me for a second.
I was about to say, how is that a break?
Yeah, well, it's still a break. Because you're changing situations, you're changing scenarios, you're doing something different. You're
Change
going
is as good as a rest,
different.
in other words.
Kind of, sorta, yeah. Okay, so that's maybe solution number one. The other thing is tiny breaks, micro breaks, stuff you wouldn't even class as a break. For instance, a bath instead of a shower. Think about it. A bath instead of a shower, which allows you to swim around with your rubber ducky and get loads of bubbles in the air.
Yeah, but the problem is you're in the bath and suddenly they descend on you and they're doing a poo right beside you before you know it.
Did you? Jesus Christ, Will! Did you? Not the bowel, please. No bowel jokes.
That's what kids do.
So did you never hear of a lock on the door? No. I know what
and then they declare it's an emergency, and if you don't open it, you'll go out, it'll be in the hall.
Hey, solutions,
Sorry.
my man.
Sorry.
We're
Okay.
exploring solutions.
So,
Okay.
solution three.
The other thing is you are better able to look after your kids following a break. So if the stuff that is preventing her from doing this and driving her is guilt, that's one way to actually negate the guilt. You will be in a better position to look after them better once you have looked after yourself. Again, none of this is rocket science, but what it is good, solid, positive, solution-focused focus instead of focusing on the negative, instead of focusing on the stuff that says, no, I can't. No, I shouldn't. No, I mustn't. What will other people think of me? I mean, I've heard this time and time again over the years. What other people? Other people don't matter. You matter. You matter. What you think of you is the only thing that you should be grading yourself on. What you think of you. Everybody in the world, everybody, and some texts will come in on this, I don't care. I care not. I don't care. Everybody in the world has an agenda in relation to you. Think about
Rory, you have a great Christmas. We look forward to chatting again in 2025.
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. Have a great break.
Rory Hafford, psychotherapist and author who lives in 4 in County Westmeath. Some would say he is the 8th wonder.